He married slightly above him. My mother was the daughter of a poor artist. My father died when I was 6 years old. When I was 14, Hello, my lovely language learners, and welcome to this short story by Agatha Christie. The title is The Case of the Missing Will. I hope you enjoy it, and I think the benefit of listening and reading at the same time is quite significant because it allows you to listen to the pronunciation, learn new vocabulary, pause, you can slow down the video, so you can basically go follow at your own pace. What I have done is circle some of the more difficult words and have included an explanation or meaning of the words in the description for you. Okay, hope you enjoy this new video. The Case of the Missing Will by Agatha Christie. The problem presented to us by Miss Violet Marsh made rather a pleasant change from my usual routine work. Poirot had received a brisk and businesslike note from the lady asking for an appointment, and he had replied asking her to call upon him at 11 o'clock the following day. She arrived punctually, a tall, handsome young woman, plainly but neatly dressed, with an assured and businesslike manner, clearly a young woman who meant to get on in the world. I am not a great admirer of the so-called new woman myself, and, in spite of her good looks, I was not particularly prepossessed in her favour. My business is of a somewhat unusual nature, Monsieur Poirot, she began, after she had accepted a chair. I had better begin at the beginning and tell you the whole story. If you please, mademoiselle, I am an orphan. My father was one of two brothers, sons of a small yeoman farmer in Devonshire. The farm was a poor one, and the elder brother Andrew emigrated to Australia, where he did very well indeed, and by means of successful speculation in land became a very rich man. The younger brother, Roger, my father, had no leanings towards the agricultural life. He managed to educate himself a little and obtained a post as a clerk with a small firm. He married slightly above him. My mother was the daughter of a poor artist. My father died when I was 6 years old. When I was 14, my mother followed him to the grave. My only living relation then was my uncle Andrew, who had recently returned from Australia and bought a small place, Crabtree Manor, in his native county. He was exceedingly kind to his brother's orphan child, took me to live with him, and treated me in every way as though I was his own daughter. Crabtree Manor, in spite of its name, is really only an old farmhouse. Farming was in my uncle's blood, and he was intensely interested in various modern farming experiments. Although kindness itself, to me, he had certain peculiar and deeply rooted ideas as to the upbringing of women. Himself a man of little or no education, though possessing remarkable shrewdness, he placed little value on what he called book knowledge. He was especially opposed to the education of women. In his opinion, girls should learn practical housework and dairy work to be useful about the home, and have as little to do with book learning as possible. He proposed to bring me up on these lines, to my bitter disappointment and annoyance. I rebelled, frankly. I knew that I possessed a good brain and had absolutely no talent for domestic duties. My uncle and I had many bitter arguments of the subject, for, though much attached to each other, we were both self-willed. I was lucky enough to win a scholarship, and up to a certain point was successful in getting my own way. The crisis arose when I resolved to go to Girton. I had a little money of my own, left me by my mother, and I was quite determined to make the best use of the gifts God had given me. I had one long final argument with my uncle. He put the facts plainly before me. He had no other relations, and he had intended me to be his sole heiress. As I have told you, he was a very rich man. If I persisted in these new-fangled notions of mine, however, I need look for nothing from him. I remained polite but firm. I should always be deeply attached to him, I told him, but I must lead my own life. We parted on that note. "You fancy your brains, my girl," were his last words. "I've no book learning, but for all that I'll pit mine against yours any day. We'll see what we shall see."